The 2010s in the NBA featured some incredible draft classes, including one of the greatest draft classes of all time, but also some pretty bad ones that were really only saved by a few great players. So I thought it would be fun to rank every NBA draft class of the 2010s from worst to best, starting with the 2010 NBA draft. Now, this just shows you how talented each of these classes are because it is headlined by guys like John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Paul George, Gordon Hayward, but unfortunately, longevity is the issue with this class. John Wall, although he did make an All-NBA team, ultimately his career was cut short by injuries not long after. DeMarcus Cousins at his peak was one of the best bigs in the entire league, but also dealt with injury issues that cut his career short. And the best player in the entire class, that being Paul George, a guy that I think would go #1 overall in a redraft, his entire career has really been headlined by injuries despite a top 3 MVP finish with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then outside of those three guys, even someone like Gordon Hayward's career was also headlined by injuries. There is some solid depth in this class, guys like Eric Bledsoe and Avery Bradley, but there's just not enough talent in this class to make up for even the best guys in it having their careers cut short by injuries. So I'm going to rank it as the worst NBA draft class of the 2010s. Moving on now, though, to the 2015 class. This is headlined by guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Devin Booker, two other all-stars as well, D'Angelo Russell and Kristaps Porzingis, and really the strength of the class is the depth. Miles Turner, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, Josh Richardson, Norm Powell, Bobby Portis, a ton of guys all throughout the first and second rounds that really add to the depth of the class. But unfortunately, the top of the class just isn't good enough to put it any higher than this. Karl-Anthony Towns is really good. He's been an All-NBA caliber player. Devin Booker has been to the finals, another guy that's made All-NBA teams. But outside of those two guys, having D'Angelo Russell and the often injured Kristaps Porzingis really headlining your class just isn't enough. And frankly, there was a conversation to be had here between 2015 and 2010 in terms of being the worst draft class of the decade, but the depth of the class with all those guys I mentioned earlier, in addition to just the longevity that we have seen so far from guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Devin Booker, despite obvious injury concerns with someone like Kristaps Porzingis at the top of the class, gives it a slight edge over 2010 in my opinion. As we move on now, you're going to start to see that some of the more recent draft classes are really difficult to rank, which is why the 2019 NBA draft ends up next on our list. There's only one All-NBA guy in the class as of this recording in Ja Morant, and three other guys that have made All-Star teams, Zion Williamson, Darius Garland, and Tyler Hero. In terms of depth, there's a lot of guys. RJ Barrett, PJ Washington, Jordan Poole, Keldon Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, Rui Hachimura, Cam Johnson, Terrence Mann, Grant Williams, Nick Claxton, Brandon Clark, a really, really deep class filled with a bunch of guys that have been really solid contributors. But just like the 2010 draft, we've got injury issues for guys like, of course, Zion and also Ja Morant. And although Darius Garland and Tyler Hero are both really, really good players, I actually think this class has been one of the more disappointing draft classes of the decade because of some of the recent issues with Morant, and of course the fact that Zion just has not been able to stay healthy, and a lack of development from someone like RJ Barrett. The top three guys of this class, Zion, Ja, and RJ Barrett, were all thought to be contenders to be all NBA caliber players, and although Zion has been that level of guy when he's healthy and Ja has made all NBA, Barrett kind of falling behind in his development, and a lot of missed opportunities at the top of this class have it ending up way lower on this list than I would have initially thought that it would be, ahead of just the 2010 and 2015 draft classes. Next up now is a class that frankly I would have thought would have been lower, but it's just better in my opinion than the other three we talked about, and that is the 2013 NBA draft. This was, even going into the draft, pretty much seen as one of the worst modern draft classes we'd ever seen. Obviously, we know that the Kenyon Martin 2001 draft is one of the worst classes of all time, but 2013 was up there at the time of the draft. We've got Anthony Bennett going first overall because absolutely nobody could figure out who should go first overall in the class. There's some solid guys like Victor Oladipo, who's made an All-NBA team. You've got KCP, CJ McCollum, Dennis Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr., Kelly Olynyk, Otto Porter. So some solid players, but really what saves this class in its entirety is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and to a lesser extent, Rudy Gobert. If Giannis wasn't in this draft class, it wouldn't even be close. This would be the worst class of the decade, and it would be significantly worse even than 2010, who we put last on this list. But Giannis being here, a guy that's won an MVP, a guy that's won a title, a guy that will probably finish his career as one of the 20 to 25 best players in the history of the league, completely saves the class. And a guy that people thought had upside, thought had potential, but obviously there was so much mystery with him, and he is one of the best development stories in modern NBA history. And then of course, Rudy Gobert helps the class a lot as well. He's not everybody's favorite player, but he's a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, one of the best defensive players of his era. And Oladipo is a guy that's pretty underrated here as well. well. Doesn't have the longevity and obviously had injury issues, but at his peak in Indiana was an all-NBA caliber player and definitely belongs kind of towards the top of this group in this class. You could, I guess, make an argument that it should be lower just because it's literally Giannis, Gobert, and a little bit of Victor Oladipo that's really holding up the class, but I think that's better than anything that 2019, 2015, or 2010 have to offer. Now, from this point on in the list, we're making a pretty significant tier jump. Those classes we talked about are kind of all in the bottom tier, and then we get to some groups that are really competing for some high spots in this list, and you really could rank them in a lot of different ways. Next up for me, I'm going to go with the 2012 NBA draft. We do have 5 All-NBA players: Anthony Davis, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, Andre Drummond, and Draymond Green, and an All-Star in Chris Middleton, along with some other depth pieces like Harrison Barnes, Jay Crowder, Evan Fournier, and Terrence Ross. The problem for me with the 2012 class is, apart from Anthony Davis, who has his own issues with injuries and things like that, this is a little bit of a weaker All-NBA class than you would think by just saying, oh, these are All-NBA guys. Beal is someone that obviously put up big numbers in Washington, but never really contributed to very many winning teams, and then has had injury issues later in his career. Damian Lillard was fantastic in Portland. I'm not going to say anything negative about Damian Lillard other than obviously the fact that he is currently hurt as of the recording of this video after tearing his Achilles. But then you're looking at like Andre Drummond. Like, does anybody really think of Andre Drummond as a high-level All-NBA player? No, not really. Draymond has been unbelievable throughout his career as a second-round guy, obviously a multi-time champion, and really rounds out this group of All-NBA guys, but just that group plus Chris Middleton just was not enough to really elevate a class that also lacks a good amount of depth throughout the group. In a redraft, I would assume that Anthony Davis or Draymond would go first overall, probably AD followed by Draymond, then Lillard, but that just isn't a good enough group for me at the top to really put it into top tier contention. It's really, really close, but I'm going to put it here on this list. Next, though, let's talk about the 2017 NBA draft. A couple of All-NBA guys already in this class: Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, and Donovan Mitchell, and 3 All-Stars as well: Lauri Markkanen, Bam Adebayo, and Jared Allen. And really the thing that elevates this group, because initially you might think, okay, that's a nice group of 6 players, but it's not necessarily better than the class that we just talked about. The depth really, really separates this class. Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Dylan Brooks, Derek White, John Collins, Malik Monk, Lonzo Ball, Isaiah Hartenstein. There is so much depth and talent in this class, and none of that accounts for the fact that the first overall pick in this class, Markelle Fultz, had some crazy injury stuff that prevented what could have been a very promising NBA career as well. That top tier group of Tatum, Fox, and Mitchell is really good. That next tier of All-Stars of Markkanen, Adebayo, and Allen is also really good. And then that much depth throughout the class, I think, just overtakes a little bit of what's happening at the top of that 2012 class with Davis, Beal, Lillard, Drummond, and Draymond. I definitely think that it's arguable if you're a huge Anthony Davis and Draymond fan, maybe you're going to have that 2012 class over 2017. But I love Jason Tatum. I love Donovan Mitchell. I love De'Aaron Fox. And the depth of this class, to me, if you're judging the class as a whole, not just the top of it, I think 2017 is slightly better than 2012. And these guys still have a lot more to do in their careers, whereas the 2012 class feels pretty much finished at this point. Moving on now to the draft class that I had by far the most issues ranking, and that is 2016. We've got 4 All-NBA guys in the class: Ben Simmons, Jaylen Brown, Domantas Sabonis, and Pascal Siakam. We've got 2 All-Stars in Brandon Ingram and DeJounte Murray. And really, again, the strength of the class to me, the depth. Jamal Murray, who somehow hasn't made an All-Star team, Buddy Hield, Karis LeVert, Taurean Prince, Malik Beasley, Malcolm Brogdon, Ivica Zubac, who was a borderline All-NBA guy this past season as we're recording this video, and Jakob Poeltl, who's also really, really good. I think really the conversation to be had here about 2017 and 2012 versus 2016 is what you think about the top tier group. Obviously, Ben Simmons made an All-NBA team, but his career at that level was very short-lived. Jaylen Brown's very, very good, but maybe you're not as big of a fan of him as some other people. Domantas Sabonis, same thing. Very good, makes an All-NBA team, but maybe is more on that like slightly better than Andre Drummond kind of version of his career. And then Pascal Siakam, although he is an NBA champion and has succeeded both in Toronto and Indiana, maybe you don't see his overall impact as impactful as some of the guys at the top of the 2017 or 2012 class. And I would say that if you're just comparing the All-NBA tier of 2016 to 2017 or 2012, you would be correct. But after that group, if you just eliminate the All-NBA selections, then you're looking at a really, really deep group headlined by Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, and really Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray being in the non-All-NBA, non-All-Star category really, I think, separates this class along with a bunch of the other depth that I talked about. Zubac has certainly elevated this class maybe a level above where you would have thought of would have been a year ago as of the recording of this video. And I think the margins are razor thin between 2016 and 2017, but I would put it slightly above as the 4th best draft class of the entirety of the 2010s. And now we get to the top tier. I think the number 1 class of the 2010s is pretty unassailable. It's pretty inarguable what that class is, but really all 3 of the ones we're going to talk about from this point on do have some kind of an argument to be made to be at the top of this list. And ultimately for me at number 3, I'm going to go with the 2014 NBA draft. Famously, this is both Joel Embiid as well as Nikola Jokic, 2 guys that have both won MVPs in the All-NBA section. You've also got Julius Randle that's made an All-NBA team, 2 All-Star guys in Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine, and a ton of depth. Aaron Gordon, Jordan Clarkson, Jeremy Grant, Marcus Smart, Clint Capella, Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Kyle Anderson, Yusuf Nurkic, Bogdan Bogdanovic. This is a really strong group. And obviously at the top of it, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic are 2 of the best players of their era. For Embiid, when he's healthy, for Jokic, just full stop. He's going to end his career as one of the best players in the history of the league, and that certainly elevates the class when you consider that the guy was picked all the way in the 2nd round. If you're going to poke holes in the group, it's Jokic all the way at the top, then Embiid underneath him, and then there's a pretty significant gap between those 2 guys and everyone else. And when you're looking at these next 2 classes that are coming up, it really makes it difficult to put 2014 over either of the classes that are left, because it's just so top heavy. There's a nice amount of volume in terms of depth, but there's not as much quality depth as you would have hoped for in this class to try and rank it above either the 2 classes are left, but still absolutely an incredible class in 2014. Which brings me to my number 2 selection now on the list, and it's 2018. You've got 4 All-NBA guys in this class. You've got Luka, Trae Young, SGA, who just won an MVP, and then the guy that's added kind of late to this list that's broken out over the last couple of years, and that's Jalen Brunson. You've also got an All-Star in Jaren Jackson Jr. that just signed a max contract, and a ton of really high quality depth. Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Ayton, who was the 1st overall pick in the draft, Colin Sexton, Gary Trent, Anthony Simons, Dante DiVincenzo, Mitchell Robinson, Grayson Allen, Wendell Carter. That is an absolutely loaded draft class. You got a guy in Luka that has been an MVP caliber player throughout his career, just hasn't won one. You got a guy in SGA that just won a title and finals MVP and regular season MVP all in the same season. Jalen Brunson's been incredible since he's gotten to New York. Trae Young, of course, has been awesome as well. And the fact that you can say all of that before you even get to one of the better defensive players in the entire league in Jaren Jackson Jr. and some really quality complementary and role player guys like Mikal Bridges. 2018 is an unbelievably strong class. We kind of knew that at the time. This was a class that certainly a lot of people were excited about. It's still crazy in hindsight. I've got a bunch of videos out there you can go and look at on other channels. It's still crazy in hindsight that Luka didn't go 1st overall in this class, and maybe it's even more crazy that Dallas ended up with both Luka and Jalen Brunson in the same class, yet they couldn't keep those 2 guys together. But 2018 is an unbelievable group that only isn't 1st overall and the best draft class of the decade, because the 2011 NBA draft is one of the best draft classes of all time. You've got 6 All-NBA players, multiple guys that have won championships in that tier, and guys that at different points in their careers have been some of the best players at their individual positions. Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, those are the headliners of the All-NBA group. But then you've also got Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler, Isaiah Thomas, Celtics Isaiah Thomas, of course. You've got an All-Star Nikola Vucevic, and you've got some nice depth pieces as well in Tobias Harris, Jonas Valanciunas, and Reggie Jackson. I think you could, if you really wanted to, make a little bit of an argument for 2018 to be above 2011 within this group, but I just have so much love and respect for guys like Kawhi, guys like Klay, people that have really mattered and had a huge impact on the league over their careers. And then Kyrie is one of the most entertaining basketball players really of all time. And it's an incredible class when you look at where each of them came from. You've got Kyrie at 1st overall, you've got Klay as a lottery guy, Kawhi as a mid-1st round, Kemba as a lottery guy, you've got Jimmy Butler at 30th overall in the 1st round, Isaiah Thomas the last pick in the draft overall, and like I said, some other pieces that you just kind of forget are even in the class, like Vooch, Tobias Harris, and Valanciunas, and Reggie Jackson, because the top of the class is just that strong. If we reevaluate this in 10 years and guys like Luka and Trae maybe continue to elevate their games, maybe win titles, maybe win MVPs, maybe 2018 could overtake 2011, but really, for the last couple of years, 2011 has solidified itself as the best draft class of the 2010s, and that might still change, but I would put that over 2018, and this would be my order of ranking every single draft class of the 2010s in the NBA. But of course, I'm curious to see what your rankings would be and how you would change this around.